So I'm going to show you how to adjust the blade, the flat blade on this, into the perfect position for cutting. You don't want to mess with this too much. This is just something that you're going to do almost never. We set it at the factory, and that's how it should be left. The only reason you would ever do anything to that and change where we set it at the factory is if for some reason you've damaged your adjustment blocks, or you've taken this off and changed blades and went to a different blade without matching the blades up if you've got a number of different machines. Because these blades, the steel is so hard that you're almost never going to resharpen these blades. You're just going to hone them out with a diamond honing stone to kind of dress them, and that doesn't take off enough material to require readjustment. But let's say something goes wrong. A friend borrows it, they readjust it for you to try and help out, and now you've got to do it again. So we're going to show you how easy it is. Do it this way. Never adjust that blade so it's too far forward. The reel on these machines is designed to be slightly above at top dead center, the actual cutting edge of that flat blade. So in other words, if you move that flat blade too far forward, it's actually going to be pressing down on the reel. And because the metal on that blade is so hard, harder than the reel, it's just going to grind that blade down. So you may think you're getting a great cut for a little while, but it's going to be very loud, and what's going to happen is you're going to destroy your reel. And now you've got to replace that reel in order to get the machine back. So try not to let your friends adjust this. Meanwhile, if they do, let's see if we can save it by showing you how to adjust the blade properly. So the first thing that you're going to do is loosen the two set screws on either side. And you're going to just loosen them a little bit and then tighten them just a hair. You don't want them tight, but you want them touching the top of that blade. That's so that this blade is kept pushed down enough so you can get a true setting on it as we go along. The two tools you're going to need are a 3/8" open wrench and a number 2 Phillips head screwdriver. You put the wrench on the back nut, on the back block, hold the screw, and just lightly loosen that nut. You don't want to loosen it too much. You just want to loosen it enough so you can turn this. Go to the front one and back it off. Back it off 2 or 3, because you may have to hold it and turn it as we adjust it. It'll all depend on which way it's out. Do this to both sides. Again, you just hold the screwdriver tightly and just loosen that nut enough so you can turn it. Go to the front and back the front lock nut off 2 or 3 turns, half turns anyway. Now what we're looking for is where we're going to start. So look at that bolt going through that block, and that bolt is going to move that blade backwards and forwards. We want to start out by adjusting that bolt so that it is flush with the block up front. So the very head of that bolt, we want to put it where it's just flush, just sitting perfectly flush with that block, not sticking out and not sticking in. And we're going to do that to both sides. Once both of the bolt heads are flush with that front block, that's the block that rests on top of the blade, the next thing that you're going to want to do is tighten up both of your set screws. You don't have to tighten these set screws really, really hard. You just want to tighten them down enough so that we can make this test. So we're going to take our left hand and we're going to use it to rotate the belt on the left-hand side of the machine. And we're going to rotate that 3 or 4 times and listen. And as long as we don't hear any metal-to-metal contact, then we can go on with the second part of this test. If we hear some metal-to-metal contact, then we know that we've got our blade a little too far forward, and we're going to stop, and we're going to take both set screws. We're going to lightly loosen them again. We're going to go clockwise with the Phillips head screws. Go maybe 1/2 of a turn on both sides. Then we're going to tighten those 2 set screws, and we're going to listen again and see if we've got any metal-metal contact. Now, if we don't have any metal-to-metal contact after that, then the next test, you're going to take your right hand, and while turning that reel, making the reel turn again by using your left hand on the belt, we're going to press down in the middle of this blade just lightly. We don't want too much pressure. Now, with a little bit of light pressure right in the middle of the blade only, we want to hear a light scraping action as we're turning this. As soon as we let loose of the pressure in the middle of that blade with our hand, we want to hear it go clean again. No metal-to-metal contact. If we've got that, then we've got this dialed in perfect. That's the right way to do it. Now, if for some reason, when you're setting this blade up, when you make your first test and you don't hear any metal-metal contact, and then you go to press down and make that test, and it's nothing, you can't get it to make contact, or it's quite a bit of pressure that you have to make contact, you can go back, again, lightly loosen both of your set screws, and turn each of those Phillips head screws in a counterclockwise motion. Do it a half turn to a full turn, each side equally. Then retighten your set screws. This has moved your blade forward a little bit. And do the test again. So you should hear no metal-to-metal contact when you're turning it without your pressure in the middle of the blade. And as soon as you push down on that blade, it should make a scraping contact noise with the reel while you're turning it with your left hand quite easily. Once you get to that sound where it's just light pressure, you're set, and it's time to tighten everything up. Looks like we have the blade set just where we want it. This is good. Now we want to tighten up those two set nuts. We're going to hold the Phillips head screwdriver tightly, and we're going to tighten that lock nut on the back block first, and we're going to go back and tighten on the front lock. Now, we don't want to over-tighten these, but you want them firmly tightened against the blocks. What this does is it locks that rod, it locks that threaded bolt into position so it won't change on you no matter how many times you take this off and on to change the blade and clean the blade. So you want to make sure you get these locked in, but again, none of this machine requires a whole lot of pressure. Just tighten them up enough so that they're good and tight. And then do the other side exactly the same as this, and you're ready to go back to work.